Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fatima, and on behalf of our team, Fatima and Haris Mastuki, I would like to present our paper entitled Focus on the Learner's Language Insights from an Interlanguage Study in the Indonesian Context. This presentation is divided into four sections, starting from the introductions, theoretical framework, the finding of the study, and also the conclusion. Okay, now let's start from the introductions. Research in the language has been fascinating, and linguists have conducted research on language learner system with a variety of learners for decades, covering the areas of what speakers of a certain language know about the language, how the language is acquired by human mind, and how the knowledge of the language is used. In 1970s, Nemser coined the term approximative system to develop the second language acquisition theories, and then afterwards Selinker proposed the term error analysis as a basis to examine the learner's interlanguage. From this point forward, studies of interlanguage in English learning contexts in countries where English as a foreign language have been emphasized and developed. Our study explores interlanguage since we are interested in the fact that most university students in Indonesia have been learning English for more than 10 years, but they still find it difficult to express ideas in English properly. Therefore, we intend to describe the performance of the Indonesian adult learner of English based on error analysis. The theories underpinning our study are interlanguage, developmental stages in grammatical morphemes, and error analysis. Coda distinguishes errors from mistake. Error is a deviations in learner's language which result from lack of knowledge of the correct rule, while mistake is a deviations in learner language that occurs when learners fail to perform their competence. In carrying out the research, we employ the first four procedures of error analysis. In the collection of a sample of the language, the type of sample used in this study is categorized as an incidental sample, since we involve one participant, a 20-year-old female adult learner from Indonesia, who is currently studying English at a state university, and she has been learning English since she was in secondary school and once she lived in abroad. The data were collected from a 30-minute interview covering topics such as the participants' expectations, hobbies, past experiences, and future plans. After we collected the data, we identified errors, and the errors are overt errors. It means that we only want to find the corrected errors, and the identified errors cover past tense, plural forms, articles, affixes, prepositions, present tense, and also auxiliary. However, in describing the errors as the next stage, we only focus to discuss three areas of errors which are commonly the most common errors exist in our data, and those three areas are past tense, plural form, and articles. All the correct and incorrect forms utterances made by the participants are shown in the data so that we can later on move on to the next stage, which is explanations of error, in which that we identify the rules underlying her language for each area of the error, as well as the possible causes of those errors. So these are the findings. So these are the correct use of past tense and the incorrect use of past tense. From the data here, we categorize the correct and incorrect past verb forms into the table like this, and we come to the idea that the learner here has a weakness in producing irregular past verb forms, because if we see the errors and also the correct forms, the participants here produce only single or one irregular past form works correctly. compared to those regular ones, and it also happens with the incorrect um, productions. And from the analysis here, we found out that the learners actually knows how that she has to use past tense when she was asked about the things that happened in the past or her experiences in the past. However, she doesn't have a full understanding about how to construct past tense sentences correctly. And then there is also a tendency that she used mark verb for past tense. So she used in Indonesia we call it verb to in clauses in which it functions as a past time signals. So all of the times clauses it uses the correct marked verb. However, after the clause, she doesn't mark the verbs to indicate past tense anymore. For example, in line 3, we found out that she produced but when I arrived here. So when I arrived here is this time clause. I'm quite surprised. It's not like what I expect. So from this sentence, we can see that when the clause is indicating the time when I arrived here, she uses the past form verbs. But afterwards, the next clause, she uses present tense, so she doesn't mark the verb as past marker. Even she's also in this case she corrects her own utterances like I quite, and then she corrected into I'm quite, but still didn't she doesn't mark the verb into past tense. Another example is in line 150. When I was a kid until I was a teenager, so it's past, I like to dance traditional. So like here still in the, it's not marked into past tense. Another point that we notice is that the learner marks the be in the past form whenever it is preceded by the subject I. For example, I think when I was in senior high school, when I was in a primary school. So once again, the time clauses always marked with the correct past form, and when the subject is I, the marker of the past form is correct. On the contrary, when the subject is not I, so we found that she produces like there and it. It's not; they are not marked as a past form. B. So it is the first experience. Touches snow. Instead of saying it was, so she produces it is. When there is a celebrate something, actually she explained or she described her past experience, but then still she used present tense. So instead of saying there was, she said there is. And then regarding the productions of the regular past form, we assume that she has a mastery in producing the regular verb forms, especially if the verbs there are used in a daily conversation. But still, even though she has a mastery in producing regular verbs, we've still found that she doesn't mark some other verbs. And the possible causes from her errors are there's a possibility that she doesn't recognize the past form since she really heard the correct regular forms during her study at school. There is also a possibility that she actually knows the form, but since she can't pronounce the final consonant sound, so people or who hear her saying her correct regular past form, but we hear it as a present form. And another possible cause is that it's just her way as a strategy to communicate. So she doesn't want to, to keep the conversation smoothly. So she chooses not to use or think about the past verb forms. Talking about the plural forms here, so from the data, we believe that the learner hasn't mastered the rule and the application of plural forms in English. The same thing with the article the and we believe also that the learner tends to use article the in conveying her utterances. The patterns of the errors in the plural forms and articles we combine it because there is a connection between how she uses plural form and also the articles. The use of plural forms in the language is still limited. However, she shows that there's a principal rules in using the plural form. So she can use plural forms with quantifier several and number, for example, 3 months, 2 years correctly. But when the sentence is preceded by many, quantifier many, so she produces the singular noun after the quantifier many. For example, like there are many bus schedule, there are many island there. So yeah, and then the learner is also aware that she has to use plural context, plural. The sentence uses plural context because she uses plural auxiliary like are to indicate the noun are in plural. However, once again, when she uses the word many, she doesn't have to change the noun into plural form because many, what she believes is that it conveys the plural meaning. Talking about the articles, so the article the is used consistently. So in many times she tends to use article the instead of or an. And in the use of article the, she's consistently and correctly used this article to construct superlative. This is the best time in my life. This is the best experience, for example, like that. And then whenever she employs the article the following noun is usually in a singular form. It's not in the plural form. Okay. Yeah, for example, the technology here is not. The people is mostly. So whenever there's the plus singular form of noun. And also she employs article a in some familiar expressions. So when I was in the primary school, I joined a club, I have a holiday, I take a course. So in colloquial expressions you can use article a correctly. And there are some possible errors. The first one is slip of the tongue because there is one data showing the slip of the tongue when she said about basketballs. She said basketballs, but in the other occasion she can correctly say it as basketball. And then there was also a drilling, so this is a kind of transfer of training. And the other possible cause is false concept of a hypothesis by the learner herself. For example, like several must be followed by non-plural forms, but many is followed by singular noun form. And then she also simplifies the rule of article and decides to use the in her utterances, except in some colloquial expressions that are mentioned before. And the conclusions that we can draw from our studies that there are three major areas in the learner language, which are past tense, plural form, and article the and then the source of language learners might be due to the interference of the L1 rules, intralingual factors such as overgeneralizations, incomplete applications of the rule in the target language, and also failure in comprehending the whole rule. Another source of errors is from the evidence of transfer of training, strategies of the L2 learning, and also communication strategies. So these are the findings and also conclusions of in our study, and these are some references. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully that our study are beneficial for you all, and we will welcome feedback, questions, and also suggestions. Thank you.